Boldwood presents A Yorkshire Affair, written by Julie Houston and read by Laura Bryden. Chapter 1. Jess. 3 a.m. I stared at the ceiling wide awake, heart beating too quickly, breathing out of control. Be careful what you wish for. Well, I'd wished for him back home after his 8-month dalliance away, and now I knew I no longer wanted him. Knew I didn't love him anymore. Wasn't convinced I even liked him much. I turned, moving away from any contact with his well-muscled thigh, reaching for the very edge of the bed, desperate for some semblance of sleep before the alarm sounded its pernicious call at 6 a.m. Dean moved with me, flinging a heavy and tattooed arm over my breasts, burying his early morning shadow scratchily into my back, muttering something I couldn't catch before emitting neat little snores, each accompanying a puff of air down my spine, only adding to the tension. Jesus. Square numbers, that usually worked. I'd reached and worked out 324, 18 times 18, when the first note sounded from the blackbird that lived and sang in the eaves right underneath the bedroom window. Jesus. I muttered the word out loud this time, wrapping the pillow around my ears. And you can shut up, you little fecker. Not you, Jesus, sorry. Roused from wherever his slumbers had taken him, probably back down to the Green Dragon with the barmaid there, or, more likely now that he was schmoozing with what he saw to be the upper echelons of society at Beddingfield Golf Club, anticipating a hole-in-one. Dean pressed a particularly healthy but unwelcome erection in my direction. No hole-in-one for you here, matey, I tuttered crossly, and sliding out of bed, made my way downstairs to do the ironing. You can get straight back upstairs and take that little lot off your face. I looked up from the eggs I was scrambling for Lola's and Dean's breakfasts.
Everyone at Beddingfield High wears makeup,
Lola retorted, admiring her handiwork in the convex curve of my best serving spoon. But you're not at Beddingfield High until September. I shook my head. Go on, back upstairs right now.
I'm at the high school all day today,
Lola reminded me.
I knew you weren't listening when I told you.
I had, with everything else going on in my life, totally forgotten this fact.
Everybody else will be wearing it. Drop me left out, ostracised.
Been swallowing a dictionary again, Lola? Dean pulled out a chair, the chair he'd reclaimed as his own once he'd moved back in a month earlier, and sat expectantly waiting to be served while scrolling through his phone.
I hadn't forgotten, Lola,
I lied. You need to make a good impression on this taste today. You know, stand out to the staff who'll be teaching you in September.
Well, I'm not going to make a good impression if I don't look good,
Lola argued, eyeing the toast and eggs I sat in front of her. Why are you looking at your breakfast rather than eating it? I asked my 11-year-old, irritation mounting as Dean continued to scroll rather than starting on his own food.
Eggs are high in cholesterol,
Lola said calmly, picking up a knife and fork and cutting off a small amount before popping it into her lip-glossed mouth and chewing contemplatively. Rubbish, I snapped. They're full of protein. And don't you start having food issues when you've not even started high school.
By your mentioning issues with food, I'll probably end up with one,
Lola said.
We've been doing anorexia in PSHE, drugs and alcohol last week,
she went on, attacking her eggs now with relish. Lola, like me, had always adored her food.
Sex next?
That raised Dean's head from his phone like nothing before. Sex? Dean stared before reaching for his fork and shoveling food one-handed into his mouth. God, I wished he'd use a knife and fork properly, and wipe his mouth on the napkin I always provided. Food was something to be revered, to be eaten slowly and relished, even if it was only eggs and toast on a Friday morning. Brought up by my mum, a single mother who'd insisted on exemplary table manners for me and my younger sisters, Robin and Sorrel, I found anything less than my mum's, and now my own, exacting standards highly irritating. I swallowed my irritation and sat down at the table with my own plate while contemplating this man I'd been married to for 11 years. Being so in love with Dean Butterworth when meeting him during my first year of A-levels, I'd made the decision, an utterly stupid one, to forego my place at university because Dean hadn't wanted me to leave him. Mum had implored me to take up the place at Newcastle to study food sciences, to leave home and take the fantastic opportunity offered to me, but I'd been adamant I wanted only to be with Dean. I was always a home bird, anxious at the very thought of leaving Mum, Robin and Sorrel to go away to study, and it had been a relief to know Dean wanted me to settle down with him. He'd encouraged me to get a job in the Sattar Brothers' local frozen food factory, Frozen, instead of taking the opportunity to study the food sciences I'd worked so hard for, and when the cottage next to Mum's had come up for sale, I'd been off like a shot to the Halifax with Dean. For heaven's sake, what had been the matter with me? Finding myself pregnant with Lola at not quite 20, I'd married Dean and we'd moved into the cottage. He appeared to like the idea of settling down with someone who was going to have his tea on the table and his socks washed. But I'd learnt the hard way. He's seeing no problem in continuing the single life of going clubbing with his mates, constantly down the Green Dragon and offering every girl who came to have her car serviced at his garage in the village any other servicing they might require. There'd been few unable to resist his seduction techniques, his stocky, gym-toned body, his dark curls and olive skin, the contrast of those quite amazing blue eyes, blame my Irish-Italian heritage he'd boast, and easy patter. I'd fallen for it myself for years. How could I blame these girls, especially the more uptown ones who appeared to relish the idea of a bit of rough trade? Since he'd relinquished his beloved footy for golf while searching out Ralph Lauren at the local designer outlets, I knew he fancied himself a little more upmarket these days. All golf gilet and TK Maxx knickers, Robin had scoffed, and whereas a few years ago I'd have been offended, now I had to agree. Always Dean in and out of my life, Dean who'd constantly cheated on me throughout our 11-year marriage. Was I doomed to be like my mother, always making herself available for just one man? In Mum's case, Jaden Allen, the charismatic and, let's face it, exceptionally good-looking reggae singer and prolific womaniser, who, despite having fathered all three of us Allen girls, had rarely been a presence for either Mum or us. Why, in God's name, had I taken Dean Butterworth back?
Mum? Mum? You pouring tea into the milk jug? Oh, bugger.
I stopped pouring, glanced across at Dean, who was messaging someone, and, standing to clear the table, I ordered Lola upstairs to wash her face.
She'll only put it on again once she's on the bus the village school will have ordered to ferry them across to Beddingfield High.
Dean spoke without looking up. She's 11, Dean.
Exactly.
He grinned, then stood, pocketed his phone, and, seeing through the kitchen window Mum walk over from her own garden, grabbed his jacket.
Lisa?
Dean? There was absolutely no love lost between my mum and my husband. He's still here, then? Mum asked as the kitchen door banged behind him and he walked past the window, phone pressed to his ear. Of course he is, I snapped. He's my husband. Yes, and a hard dog to keep on the porch. Mum raised an eye but said nothing further. Well, you're the expert in husbands like that, I muttered under my breath, fetching another jar of homemade jam from the pantry. Some husband, I conceded, buttering 2 more thick slices of the deliciously Moorish sourdough bread I'd made and baked at 4 a.m. More damned calories I didn't need. I spread it lavishly with the previous season's blackberry jam, not caring that stress and lack of sleep were making me, as they always did, turn to food for comfort. Well, I obviously did care. It wasn't easy inheriting a big backside, being described as a big, handsome lass when both my 2 sisters had been blessed with the majority of Mum's petite Asian genes. I sometimes felt like a cart horse in a paddock of tiny show ponies when all 4 of us Allen women were in a room together. So, what does Dean think? Mum was asking now, watching my face closely as she always did when she was worried about me. What does he think? I managed to get out through a too enthusiastic bite of bread and jam. Actually, Mum sniffed over a cup. Does Dean ever think? I moved from the table, walking over to the window, wanting to cry, which, with a mouthful of bread and jam, was not that easy to accomplish.
I'm sorry, darling, that wasn't nice. It's just, you were doing so well without him. About to start a new career as a chef in your own restaurant. Mum, it's not my restaurant, it's Cameron's restaurant, you know that? And Fabian's, Mum soothed. Fabian wants you to be a part of his dream with the White House. So, what does Dean think? Is he going to be around to look after Lola when you're cooking at the new place? Most evenings? Is he at all interested? He thinks I'm mad. Mad? Giving up a good job to go into some venture that might not work? Typical. Mum sniffed, pouring herself what was left in the teapot. What's wrong with this milk? She sniffed again, this time suspiciously at the jug. Nothing, I'll get you some more. I moved from the window over to the fridge. How are you feeling? About Dean? No, not about Dean. About relinquishing your hold on Hudson House. I do feel I'm deserting the old dears. Poor Tom was in tears yesterday. Well, you and Fabian and Cameron aren't actually turfing them out, which is what you were worried about. You'll still be up there, can still pop in and see them all, albeit in your chef whites. Do you think, Mum, I asked, looking directly at her, that if Cameron Sattar hadn't come into your life, hadn't fallen in love with you, as he so obviously has, he'd have gone ahead with his plans to knock down Hudson House, razed the whole lot to the ground and extended his bloody fish finger empire on that site, rather than now looking to knock down St. Mead's School? I don't know, Jess. Mum concentrated on pouring the fresh milk into a cup. Come on, Mum, you must know. You've been with him 3 months. He must have talked to you about it. What are the damned Sattars planning now? Jess, I really don't understand why you're being so hostile to Cameron. For heaven's sake, you're going into business with him, opening a restaurant with him. Something you've always wanted. Mind you, you could do without Dean along for the ride. Mum, I'm not going into business with him. I air-quoted the words irritably. It's Cameron's and Fabian's money that's sorting it. I don't have any money to put into any business, you know that. I'm along for the ride, if anyone's along for any damned ride. Knowing Mum was right about Dean, I was feeling even more cross. Lola! I moved to the bottom of the stairs. If you don't come down now, you'll miss the coach to the high school. I turned back to Mum. What are you up to today? Why don't I come to Hudson House with you later on? You're on the afternoon and evening shift? I've not been up there for a couple of weeks, and Cameron says the renovations to the White House are really coming on. Whatever. I felt so tired, so stressed. The thought of facing the reality of the next step of the White House venture was making me feel physically ill. I'll walk Lola down to school, Mum began. Mum, she's 11. She doesn't need a chaperone to go down the lane. And then you go back to bed for a couple of hours. I'll pick you up at 11:30. Goodness, it really is coming on, isn't it? I shaded my eyes against the weak March sunshine, gazing up and across the lawns, rose beds and vegetable gardens of the old mill owner's mansion, towards the extended summer house that would soon be opened as the White House restaurant. But you must have been up here recently, Jess. Goodness, I'd have been up every day if it was my business. I keep telling you, it's not my business, Mum. You're going to be one of the chefs. Exactly, just one of the chefs, without any formal training. All those cookery courses you went on. Mum turned back to me. Not that you needed them, darling, and, she went on when I didn't reply, you've run your own catering business for 6 months before COVID scuppered that. And Jess, for heaven's sake, you won the Yorkshire chef competition. A paltry little Christmas competition. Stop it, Jess. You can do this. OK, you're not going to be head chef, but Fabian will be in the kitchens with you. You'll be learning on the job together. Mum, I can't do it. I felt myself go into panic mode. But I'm a carer, not a chef. I'm good at that. I'm going to tell Cameron and Fabian. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not giving my job up at Hudson House. And who's going to look after Lola when I'm on the evening shifts? No one's thought of that, have they? She's already going off the rails. She had lip gloss on this morning. Mum started laughing at that. As did you, Robin, and Sorrel at 11, if I remember correctly. They need me there, at the home. Where were you, my darling Jess, when God was giving out confidence and self-esteem? At the front of the big-ass queue, I sniffed, feeling tears start again. What the hell was the matter with me? Had I got long COVID, early menopause at just 30? Or was I simply depressed? I certainly felt anxious and miserable when I should have been feeling so excited, so ready to get on with this fabulous new venture I was going to be part of. Or not. Lola will stay with me, as she always has done when you've been on the evening and night shifts at Hudson House, Mum said calmly. And one advantage, the only advantage I can see to having Dean back, is that he'll be at home for Lola. She broke off as an arm snaked round her, pulling her into its owner. Do you always creep up on unsuspecting women like this? She smiled as Cameron Satar dropped a kiss onto her dark head. Only those I fancy like mad. He grinned, putting both arms now around Mum's tiny waist. Oh, for heaven's sake, get a room, the pair of you, I said, embarrassed but, to my shame, also utterly envious of Mum's love life. Are you okay, Jess? Cameron asked. I've come up to help you interview the prospective managers for Hudson House. I may now own a care home, but I've absolutely no idea about running one. It shouldn't be too much different from running your frozen empire, Mum laughed. I turned on her. Mum, are you saying my residents, my lovely old people, are the equivalent of fish fingers or... I couldn't quite recall what else Cameron's massive frozen food empire manufactured. Bloody turkey twizzlers or the like, I supposed. No, I wasn't saying that at all. Mum was trying to stop laughing, giving Cameron a warning glance. Yes, well, if that's how you feel about me old folk, I'm off. And with that, I stomped off down to the care home itself, swishing at the rusting leaves of the floribunda roses as I went, swearing at myself for being so bloody prickly and immature. I wouldn't need to be handing in my notice to Cameron, Fabian and the White House before it had even opened. At this rate, I'd be off the books. Chapter 2. Robin. As Jess was in the process of sending her daughter upstairs to remove the makeup from her 11-year-old's face, her sister, Robin, was down in the bedroom of the Dower House cottage in the centre of the beautiful village of Beddingfield, eating toast and Marmite while simultaneously doing her own makeup. Who are you trying to impress? Fabian Carrington asked mildly. Surely not the horrible 9CL. Why would I? Robin said, swearing as the mascara wand went in her eye. Celia Logan, thank goodness, has returned and is back as head of year and form tutor to the horrible 9CL. Her fractured whatever it was from the ski slopes totally fixed. Wouldn't be surprised if she could actually have been back weeks ago. Anyway, as from Monday, I was no longer form tutor to the worst class in the school. I knew you weren't listening when I told you that. So, what's with the full makeup and smart suit? You're in your best suit, which, by the way, is my biggest turn-on, a man in a navy suit. I hadn't noticed. Fabian grinned, moving behind her and lifting her massive black curls in order to nuzzle at her neck. Robin eyed him in the mirror, felt the pressure of a navy-trousered leg against her own, smelt the tang of a subtle aftershave and leaned back into him, loving the feel of him, loving the fact that he was here with her, would be here with her into the future, now that he was about to take on the White House with Cameron Satar rather than moving back down to London to take up life as a KC barrister with his family firm once more. Today was going to be Fabian's final case, a favour to Sorrel before packing away his wig and gown and doing what he really wanted to do, starting this new restaurant with Jess and Cameron. You know perfectly well why I'm in my best bib and tucker. Fabian smiled at Robin's reflection. But you're usually in your dance and drama outfits. It's been a long time, Fabian, Robin said, ignoring his question as to why she was dressed up like an air hostess in navy blue. Almost 3 months to get to this final hearing. Certainly longer than we'd anticipated or hoped for, Fabian said. Being a child, Joel's case should have all been done and dusted weeks ago. So, what are you up to? Trying to seduce that head teacher of yours once more in that skirt? I have to say it looks good on you, Robin. Not often I get to see those gorgeous legs of yours.
Yes, that's right,
Robin pouted, smoothing on a layer of coral glow to her full lips.
I'm going to shimmy into Mason Donohue's office and offer my body in return for no more covering of Year 9's lessons when the teachers are skiving again.
No, come on. Where are you off to? Parents' evening, is it? Later?
I'm going with you.
With me?
Fabian frowned at Robin's reflection.
What do you mean?
Mason, as Joel's head teacher, is going to court to support him, and as Joel is Sorrel's boyfriend,
Robin, a youth court, unlike an adult court, won't allow anyone in who has nothing to do with the case. And why you, anyway?
I wanted to see you in action once more before you give it all up.
Robin felt slightly embarrassed at her answer.
And so I asked Mason if I could go with him, and he said yes.
I bet he did. Any chance marvellous Mason gets, he'll have you sitting next to him, especially in that skirt.
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Fabian. The thing is, Sorrel wants to come too.
Absolutely not.
Fabian shook his head.
For a start, she's not 18, and even if she were, she wouldn't be allowed in a youth court. She shouldn't be getting involved in this dangerous situation of Joel's. That gang of his that got him into this mess to begin with are still out there, probably watching every move he makes.
Joel's her boyfriend,
Robin began.
Of sorts. Once she's off down to London after Easter to start at this theatre school, she'll forget all about him and move on, as she should. She has her whole life ahead of her. She shouldn't be involved with someone who's become embroiled in county lines when she's only 16. I'm sorry, Robin. I like Joel very much, and I'm sorry for the utter mess he's found himself in. But you all need to keep out of this and let me get on with doing my job of defending him. The local authority will then use their jurisdiction as to where he should be placed if the CPS decide, because of his age and because of the coercion he will say he's been under, whether to go ahead with the prosecution. And don't forget that he was attacked by a rival gang and ended up in hospital. If, on the balance of probabilities, the jury decide Joel is a victim of these gangs, and I truly believe he is, then hopefully the CPS will decide not to go ahead with the case.
Mason wants to be there, wants to support Joel, and I want to go too.
You've kept all this to yourself?
Because I knew this would be a reaction. Any chance to have a go at Mason and you'll take it.
Not guilty, Robin.
Fabian kissed her cheek.
I just reckon any chance that head teacher of yours gets to be with you, and he'll take it.
We're both going for Joel's benefit, and so I can report back to Sorrel. Are you sure Mason and I won't be allowed in?
Not unless he's acting as Joel's responsible adult. And as far as I know, that's Joel's aunt, who he's been living with over in Castleford once he was discharged from hospital after the knife attack. It's a waste of time you going, Robin, honestly. You're far better going into school as usual and waiting until I ring you to let you know the result of the case.
You do know we won't be allowed into the courtroom itself. Robin pulled on the seatbelt as Mason Donohue reversed from his spot in St Mead's High School car park and headed for the motorway.
Yes, I know, although I'm still hoping they might make an exception for me as his head teacher and let me in as additional support for Joel.
According to Fabian, no way. And don't forget, with Joel being away on local authority bail miles away in Castleford, you're not actually his head teacher anymore, and his aunt and support workers will be with him.
Well, at least we can be outside the courtroom with him before his case is called on. Show him he's not alone and that we're supporting him.
Mason hesitated and then, stopping to allow a group of nursery kids cross a zebra crossing, turned and asked,
Are you okay? Is it all working out with this barrister of yours?
It is. It's lovely.
Good for you.
And you and your wife? Mason shook his head.
Not really.
I'm sorry.
So am I.
So, what does that mean?
Thinking of moving on.
Mason gave a little grimace.
Probably best to jump now before we're actually thrown out. The Sattar brothers are determined to have the school site for a new factory and, of course, the local authority would love it too. The demolishing of their worst sink school and plenty of money in their back pocket as well. Perfect answer to the St Mead's problem.
Robin exhaled. She knew this plan had been mooted back in January, but then nothing appeared to have been done about it.
Well, at least we'll be able to get this production of grease out of the way before the bulldozers come in. She trailed off, realised she was being flippant, and also realising how much she didn't want the school to go under. If she'd been asked her opinion on the fate of the school even a couple of months previously, she'd have been at the front of the queue with the demolition ball, but now it actually all felt a bit different.
You'll be happy to see it go, won't you?
Mason asked, concentrating on the road ahead.
You've never really liked the place or the hard-work kids that are our clients.
A bit harsh, that. Robin frowned and then relented slightly. Okay, yes, you're right. I've done nothing but complain about the place since I started.
But it's grown on you?
Mason shot her a smile. Suppose. I mean, what will happen to the kids? Where will they go? Will the authority build Little Micklethwaite Village a new school? Mason gave a mirthless laugh.
Another school? What world do you live in? And what with? The authority's as broke as every other authority in the country. No, they'll pocket a fantastic amount of money to spend on mending potholes and ensuring their diversity and working from home issues are sorted. And the kids will be dispersed, probably at random, to other high schools in the area. I suspect some, nearing the end of their education, just won't bother going anymore.
All 500 of them to new schools?
We're down to 490.
Mason sighed.
Beddingfield High has already taken another 10 of ours this month, now that it's out that St Mead's is on borrowed time. Sometimes, you know, running a school like St Mead's is a bit like wading through treacle. Or shit.
Robin pulled a face, not relishing that particular picture Mason had put into her head. But what about your plans for St Mead's as a school at the forefront of the performing arts? Mason laughed somewhat hollowly.
That was just me trying to promote the school when we had Focus North into those early grease rehearsals before Christmas.
Oh, really? Robin found herself disappointed at Mason's vault farce. Focus North did say they'd be in again once we were heading for the actual performance.
Don't bank on them coming in again, Robin. You ready to roll? I watched your rehearsal last week and it seemed to be coming together, apart from a couple of issues with the kids not turning up for rehearsal.
Sorrel as Sandy and Seb Kingsley in Year 10 as Danny Zuko are certainly on target. Have you seen Seb when he's performing? He really was a good choice for Danny.
You wanted Joel.
Mason shot her a look. Of course I did. That would have been so good. He's a superb dancer, Mason.
You don't have to remind me, Robin. I've seen him in action.
Well, it's a good job Joel refused to have anything to do with the performance from the get-go. The production would have come to nothing once he was arrested for drug pushing, even though he would have been absolutely superb in it. Robin mulled this over for several minutes as Mason concentrated on pulling onto the motorway. Eventually, once they were in the fast lane, Robin said, "So, moving on, Mason. What's all that about?" Mason frowned.
Forget it. I should never have said anything. I do sometimes forget that I'm your boss and that you're a member of my staff rather than my ex-lover and my mate.
Reminded of her 2 months' affair with this charismatic head teacher when she'd returned to her hometown and, very unwillingly, taken the teaching post at St Mead's back in September, Robin found herself embarrassed, refusing to look across at Mason.
So, your mum still seeing Cameron Sattar?
Seeing him? Robin laughed at that. They can't keep their hands off each other. Oh, it's so lovely. I'm really pleased for her.
Even though she's sleeping with the enemy?
Isn't that a film with Julia Roberts?
And your dad, Jaden, is now out of the picture then? I was hoping he might come and present prizes at speech day.
St Mead's has a speech day. Robin stared.
Well, if Jaden Allen is prepared to come along, I'll make sure we have one.
Robin wasn't sure if Mason was joking, but glancing across at him, he appeared deadly serious. "I'll have words," she promised, laughing at the very idea of her dad, with his almost neurotic phobia of educational establishments, coming into St Mead's to hand out prizes.
Do, please do it.
Mason paused.
And how does he feel about your mum, his wife, being with someone else?
Jaden never married Mum, even though, as you know, she always called herself Lisa Allen. I'm afraid my dad has absolutely no right to be dogging the manger now Mum's finally moved on with someone else.
But does Jaden actually know?
I've no idea. Not seen him for a couple of months. He does keep in touch. He sent Jess a cheque for a recent birthday, but he's in the middle of a big tour of the Caribbean at the moment. They love him over there.
Well, he is one of their own, boy done good and all that. Right, this is it.
Mason pulled into the NCP car park.
Let's show Joel we're here to support him.
So, what happens now?
Joel, together with his aunt, a plethora of support workers, youth justice service workers, and Fabian, were gathered on the concourse of the courthouse as Mason and Robin joined the group once the 16-year-old's case was concluded.
I'm a bit confused,
Joel went on.
As I hoped, Joel,
Fabian was saying.
The CPS had to concede you'd been a victim of modern criminal exploitation. I was able to defend you with clear evidence that you had been subject to coercion on a very large scale.
Yeah,
Joel replied.
I know all that, Mr. Carrington, but what happens this minute? Do I have to go back to Castleford with me Auntie Judith?
Overhearing this conversation, Robin made her way over to Fabian, loving this man of hers who was so good at his job, who'd managed to extricate a young kid from a potential prison sentence. Thank you, Fabian. She reached over, briefly moving a hand to his arm, knowing he was still in professional mode and that manhandling him up against the wall of the concourse, where other law professionals were in conversation with clients, was not the most sensible way forward. Joel shook Mason's hand, thanking him for his support before walking over to Robin and shyly kissing her cheek.
Thanks, miss.
Are you able to come back to live with your mum, Joel? Back to St. Mead's for the few weeks you've left before Year 11 finish at Easter for exam leave? Joel glanced across at Fabian for reassurance that this might be a possibility, but one of the youth service support team was immediately at his side.
Joel, we have to give you continued support. You're still on an order from your previous offending, so you still have to work with us, keep appointments, not change an address without our permission. But I'm no longer on local authority bail. I'm not on a tagged curfew. I can go back to Beddingfield. Not for the moment, Joel, the support worker soothed. I know you want to get home to your family, want to get back to school rather than the home tutoring you've had for the past few months, but just leave it with us until we agree the best way forward for you. It's for your own good. You've been involved with some very unpleasant, dangerous individuals. They'll be absolutely delighted that the case against you has been dropped, and there's a big possibility they'll be watching, determined to draw you in again.
Oh, Joel, Robin frowned. Be careful. Listen, Sorrel and I can drive over and pick you up and bring you over to us for the day, or something. She glanced across at the support worker, who didn't appear overly accommodating. Joel's safety, his family's safety, and the importance of his not slipping back into old habits have to be our major concern at the moment, she parroted firmly. Just leave it all with us, and then we'll see.
Thank you.
Mason Donahue had walked over to Fabian, shaking his hand.
Not sure the outcome for Joel would have been so good without your input.
Mason paused, and Robin wasn't sure whether to laugh or be embarrassed as he said,
Now, Mr. Carrington, as a successful and famous barrister, any chance of you coming into school to give the older kids a career talk on jobs in your profession? You know, how to become a lawyer, a solicitor?
He paused again as Fabian and he eyed each other up, both conceding, Robin could see, they were rivals for her affections. I think most of St. Mead's kids are on the other side of the law, Mr. Donahue, Robin tittered nervously. She wasn't sure she liked having these two men in such close proximity, circling each other warily like a pair of bantam cockerels.
Well, that's a very kind offer, Mr. Donahue, is it?
You know perfectly well what he's called, Fabian, Robin inwardly tutted.
But as from today, I not only want to spend my time with this glorious woman here.
He leaned in Robin's direction proprietorially.
But I'm hanging up my wig and gown forever.
Fabian looked at his watch.
School will be over now, I guess. Robin, if you give me half an hour, I'll drive you back home. Save Mr. Donahue.
Mason replied pleasantly, obviously realising Fabian was trying to get one over on him, but refusing to play along with the game.
We can pick your car up from school tomorrow, darling.
Had Fabian ever called her darling before?
Maybe go out somewhere to celebrate, or a cosy night in front of the fire with a good bottle of wine.
Was that really necessary? Robin objected as, a good hour later, they walked towards Fabian's Porsche parked in the nearby car park.
Probably not.
Fabian grinned and then started laughing.
All right, sorry, that was a bit over the top, but I'm not having the man thinking he's in with a chance with you again.
Little boy mentality, Robin tutted. Honestly, Fabian, he'll think you're some sort of controlling... She broke off, stopping as the near-side tinted window of the black BMW parked next to Fabian's car slowly descended.
Good night, Fabian.
The man in the offside front seat leaned across the driver, his face in shadow.
Do have a safe journey home and a good weekend.
Chapter 3. Jess.
This is a joke. Tell me you're having me on. I stared furiously in Dean's direction. No way, Dean. Absolutely no way.
Jess, come on, you know Lola's always wanted one.
Dean smiled winningly in my direction as Lola, squealing in ecstasy, threw herself onto the floor, simply gazing at the black and white mutt who now, seizing its chance, crawled onto her lap as she crooned nonsense into its ears. No, I said. No, absolutely no way. Take it back where you got it from. It's not staying here in my house.
Our house,
Dean said smugly.
It's my coming home present to both of you, to us as a family.
Well, go away again and take that thing with you. I focused on the animal, now in danger of being cuddled to death by Lola. What the hell is it anyway? It's a dog, Mum, Lola giggled.
I think it's a sheepdog. Look, he's got one blue and one brown eye. You know, a collier dog.
Oh, great stuff. We'll have every bloody sheep in the village rounded up, wanting bed and breakfast. And the word is collie, not collier.
See, I knew you knew all about dogs.
Lola was sycophantic, trying to get round me.
Collier dog.
Dean started laughing.
Right, we can call him Scargill then.
We're calling him nothing because he's not staying. And you can't call a dog Scargill. He'll not only be rounding us up all the time and herding us where we don't want to go, he'll be calling us out on strike every 2 minutes.
I think she's coming round to the idea, Lola.
Dean grinned, reaching for his jacket. Are you taking it back? I folded my arms, watching as Dean admired his good looks in the mirror above the dresser.
You're not taking it back,
Lola pleaded.
Dad?
Come on, Jessie, let him stay. See how he goes. Look.
Dean was at his most persuasive.
He's just a couple of years old and really well behaved. The bloke who owned him has moved his girlfriend in. She's totally allergic and says it's either her or the dog.
Well, I'd have chosen the dog,
Lola said stoutly, her fingers rubbing the dog's speckled tummy until he was almost moaning in delight.
I'm off down the Green Dragon. It's Saturday lunchtime. A couple of glasses of wine.
What happened to dinner time and a couple of pints of Tetleys?
And then I'm off for a round of golf with some bloke who brought his Bentley into the garage the other day.
Well, take this creature with you, I ordered. He's not staying, Dean. I don't want a damn dog. Do you not think I've enough on with handing over the reins at Hudson House as well as...
He's fine,
Dean soothed, kissing me on the cheek, eager to be off.
See how he goes, how he settles in.
He broke off as Mum appeared in the kitchen.
Right, I'm definitely off now,
he added.
What's up, Lisa? Something happened?
Do I need something to happen, Dean, in order to pop round to see my daughter and only grandchild? While her words might not be the most welcoming, Mum, I could see, was fizzing, a huge smile on her beautiful face. Over 3 months with Cameron sat her, and she really was a changed woman from the one who'd sat around waiting for our dad Jaden to put in an appearance, as well as from the woman who'd spent almost as long dreading another seizure and consequent hospitalisation when the porphyria, which had first struck in her early 30s, descended once more. Mum was watching Dean running a hand through his thick black hair, and I knew exactly what she was thinking. If only I could have reciprocated the love Dr. Matt Spencer, Mum's consultant, had felt for and offered me. instead of my taking back this self-important booby of a husband of mine. Right, Mum said, noticing Scargill for the first time at Lola's feet. What on earth is that? A dog, Mum. I believe it's what's known in common parlance as a dog, and it's not staying. Oh, but it's adorable. Mum bent down to Lola and the dog, fondling the creature's silky ears. Lola's always wanted a dog, Jess. Mind you, has he had all his jabs and whatever? She deigned to look across at Dean, who raised an eyebrow but nodded confirmation at us. It's not just a simple matter of bringing a dog home, you know. It'll fight with Roger, I said, glaring at Mum.
You haven't still got that bloody house rabbit?
Dean gave a bark of laughter.
Ready for a pie by now, I'd have thought.
Right, Mum said again, standing while deliberately turning her back on Dean. I'm actually here with an invitation.
To a rabbit pie supper?
Dean guffawed, and I knew the man had to go.
It's so lovely having Dad back home,
Lola was telling Mum.
I never want him to go again. It brings me presents.
And unwanted livestock. Mum glanced across at me. So, she went on, Cameron has suggested both families get together, get to know each other. Get together? I stared. Why?
Great idea,
Dean whistled.
Are the satires paying then? I'm up for that. Where are we going?
I'm not sure the invitation included you. Mum sniffed, turning away from Dean once more. She really couldn't abide him, I knew.
Granny?
Lola pleaded, and I threw Mum a warning glance. Leaving him out of family invitations wasn't going to go down well with Lola. When, Mum? A couple of weeks on a strict diet, and I might just be able to get into my favourite dress if we were going somewhere upmarket. This evening? Mum grinned. Look, I know it's... What? I shook my head. Cameron'll never find a table anywhere for all of us at such short notice. No, at his house. He's cooking, along with Fabian. And does Fabian know about this? He suggested it. Said he and Robin were free this evening, but could he help with the meal as there's going to be so many of us? I mean, he and Cameron are going into business together. They need to know what the other is capable of. According to Robin, they're keeping it simple. What, shepherd's pie or something? I'll believe that when I see it. I scoffed, feeling horribly left out. The dream of a restaurant had always been mine and Fabian's, until Cameron's satire had come along with his own ideas, not to mention the satire millions in the bank, and not only bewitched my mother but seemingly Fabian as well.
Sounds good,
Dean said, rubbing his hands and heading for the back door.
What time? I'll make sure I don't have too many at the 19th hole.
Mum, who's going? But look, I can't go. I can't leave Lola here by herself. Sorrel's coming round. She's going to babysit. Sorrel's allergic to dogs too, I said, mulishly, eyeing Scargill, who'd fallen asleep on the rug in front of the log burner. Since when? Mum shook her head in my direction. Listen, there's going to be quite a few of us, she went on in some excitement. All three of Cameron's brothers and their wives. His mother. His mother? I stared. For some reason, one didn't expect an exceptionally successful entrepreneur as Cameron Sattar to have an actual mother. As well as Cameron and me. Mum broke off, going slightly pink at the audacity of thinking herself now in a couple after so many years of singledom. So you're hosting this do, are you? I asked. And Fabian and Cameron are cooking, are they? That's the plan. Fabian's already up there, apparently. Seeing my face, Mum went on. Look, I'm sure the pair of them wouldn't mind if you took yourself up there to cook as well. Mind? Mum gave a little laugh. They'd welcome you. Do you want me to ring Cameron? No, absolutely not. Don't you dare. I trailed off as Lola shook my car keys at me. Come on, Mum, she said in excitement. That lovely pet shop down in the village? Arthur. I'm going to call him Arthur. He's going to need a bed and balls as well as a lead, and we need advice on the best way to look after him. I hadn't been back to Cameron Sattar's stunning house on the outskirts of Beddingfield village since January, when Cameron had first mooted his idea of converting the huge summer house standing in the grounds of the care home into a restaurant rather than converting Hudson House itself. I'd actually forgotten how impressive Cameron's own manor house was. Lying low in the lee of the valley in its acres of lawn and woodland, and impressively to our right, the wildflower meadow over which Mum had enthused endlessly whenever she'd been able to corner any of us to listen. Native daffodils, wood anemones, taking advantage of the still leafless trees to bask in the strengthening sun, clusters of primroses, snowdrops and coltsfoot. I parroted as I parked my battered old van, Vera, in front of the wooden fence, keeping this seemingly never-ending and cockily overconfident Flora at bay. Once out of the van and taking in the sights, smells and sounds of the final few minutes of an early April dusk, there was a quite explosive sense of spring in the air, with its accompanying promise of new life and potential. Almost overcome with the pungent smell of wild garlic, I bent, crushing the leaves between my fingers, releasing even more of the fragrant aroma, while thinking only of the dishes I could concoct with the stuff.
How do you know the names of all these flowers and plants?
Dean, already breathing alcohol fumes in my direction, frowned.
You hate gardening.
I do, but Mum has done nothing but go on about this garden ever since she saw it. I know its contents off by heart. I could take an exam on what's in Cameron Sattar's garden.
She really is keeping in with him then, isn't she?
Dean nodded his approval.
There must be something for us in all of this.
Excuse me? I shot Dean a look of distaste.
I mean, how serious are they? Is Lisa thinking of moving in here?
Dean's eyes lit up at the endless possibilities in store for him as he got out the car.
That would be good. We could knock through to her cottage and have ourselves a much bigger place. She wouldn't charge you for it, would she? Once she was up here playing at being lady of the manor, she'd just hand it over, glad to be rid of it. We could...
Dean, I managed to get out through gritted teeth. They've only been seeing each other 3 months. Cut it out, will you? I stalked off ahead of him, crunching the tiny white stones underfoot on my trusty but filthily decrepit trainers, having thankfully recalled from my previous visit here that high heels would have resulted in ruined shoes, grazed knees, or a sprained ankle.
Only got Lola's and your and Scargill's interests at heart. Have to look ahead, have to think of the future.
I was prevented from making any scathing response in Dean's direction by the highly polished black double door opening in front of us, Mum proudly welcoming us in.
Lady Bountiful already.
Dean murmured into my ear as he caught me up, and together we were ushered along a deep, soft cream carpet towards a sitting room at the far end, from which noise and laughter were already drifting. Hang on a minute, I need to change out of these trainers. I headed back to the front door with my orange plastic Sainsbury's carrier containing my one decent pair of black heels, 2 bottles of Malbec, and the Welcome to Beddingfield Village tin containing the homemade Florentines I'd feverishly baked to impress once Lola and I were back from the pet shop. While Dean, eager to get on with the party, left me to it. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God, please don't say I haven't brought them. The Son of Man and his old man obviously weren't listening, but a taller, much younger version of Cameron Sattar was.
Cameron,
he called over his shoulder.
There's a blaspheming bag lady out here trying to infiltrate the party. Shall I get in the heavies? Send her on her way? Jess, come on in. Ignore this tosser of a brother of mine and come and have a drink.
2 tossers in one evening. I was obviously on a roll. Red-faced, the twisted plastic of the carrier now biting tenaciously into my hand, I appeared unable to dispose of it or its contents, and found myself, instead, simply grinning inanely in Cameron's direction. Just give me 2 minutes, Cameron, I sang, the heavy bag swinging and twisting more tightly as I turned. Is Robin here yet? Would you ask her to join me, please? Oh, God,
Now I sounded like the old dragon of a headmistress at Beddingfield High when me and Serena Atkinson had been snitched on in Year 9 for putting half a pint of frog spawn into the games mistress's spare hockey boots when said woman had left the pair of us off the team sheet for some misdemeanour or other.
You okay, Jess?
Cameron asked solicitously as the obnoxious brother stood laughing, enjoying the ongoing pantomime.
Hang on, I'll get Robin for you.
Jess? What is it? What's up? Robin, looking slim, tall and utterly fabulous in white cargo trousers and a white skimpy top, was at my side. Forgotten me heels, I muttered, and this plastic bag has arrested me and is refusing to let me go. Robin, obviously a couple of drinks down, started laughing. Oh, come here. Just relax. Let your hand go. Go where? I snapped, the heavy, bulky bag now giving me both arm and backache. I sank to the floor while Robin, still laughing, attempted to release my hand. Scissors, George! Robin called to the brother in the manner of a surgeon about to whip out a particularly vexatious gallbladder. Scissors appeared as if by magic, and, really giggling now, Robin started to snip at the strained tight plastic handle. That's my bloody finger! I pulled it back in alarm as I felt a nip to my hand.
Move over.
George, still laughing, joined Robin and me on the cream-carpeted floor at the end of the hallway, by which time all three of us were in a huddle, shouting instructions until I was free. Flexing both my hand and my dignity, I attempted to pull down the too-tight dress over my backside and, with head held high, let the filthy trainers carry me into Cameron's beautiful sitting room. Because, knowing there was one whopping great hole in the toe of my tights, as well as feet in dire need of a pedicure, this appeared to be a better alternative than discarding them entirely.
Now, Jess,
Cameron smiled.
A glass of champagne first, and then let me introduce you to everyone. This is my mum, Shirley.
Oh, thank goodness there was at least one person in the room who appeared almost as dishevelled as I felt. Glancing round at what appeared a veritable sea of beautiful and slim people, I smiled gratefully in the older woman's direction. I'd been expecting some sort of matriarchal head of the satires frozen empire, Joanna Lumley as Judith Burkitt in that Netflix adaptation of Harlan Coben's Fool Me Once sprang to mind. But the diminutively rotund woman, probably in her mid-70s, desperately trying to balance her glass of champagne and the two canapes she appeared to have ended up with, fell utterly short of that image. Jess, hello, love. Call me Shirl. How you doing? The woman's voice was pure West Yorkshire. She attempted a handshake, but, realising both hands were full, emptied her left by discharging both canapes into her mouth at once, before thrusting it in my direction. So, who do you belong to? She finally managed to get out. Belong to? I wanted to laugh at that. Who did I belong to? The tosser over in the corner, hoovering up canapes and peanuts as though there was no tomorrow. I turned my back on Dean, not wanting to acknowledge ownership of the man who was now edging his way over to a tall, sultry blonde. He was nothing if not self-assured, confident in new company in a way I had never been, or ever would be. I'm Lisa's eldest daughter. I smiled before upending my own glass of champagne. Sod it, we'd have to get a taxi home. It was ages since I'd spent an evening having more than one glass of alcohol, and this was a particularly cold, crisp and utterly delicious vintage. Oh, right. Shirley's surprised eyes dropped to my black dress, straining slightly now at my breasts and backside before automatically glancing across at my divinely slim mum and then across to Robin, who was confidently in full flow with yet another of the Satire brothers. How many of the feckers were there? They seemed to be everywhere, another one popping up out of the aether at every turn. This alcohol-fueled quizzing in my head made me want to laugh, and I grinned somewhat inanely in the older woman's direction. Of course you are, Shirley soothed. I can see the family resemblance now. Well, Robin and my little sister Sorrel appear to have inherited all of Mum's slim beauty, while Hey, you can stop that right now, love, Shirley scolded. You're a fine figure of a woman. She patted her own more than adequate polyester-clad behind. You need a bit of padding up here in Yorkshire when the winter sets in. Except it's spring, I began, laughing as Shirley glanced somewhat disdainfully across at the coven of whippet-thin women dressed in expensive designer gear in one corner of the room. Shirley's daughters-in-law, presumably. Ah, of course, you're the fabulous cook, Shirley went on, smiling. Won that Yorkshire Top Chef thingy last Christmas, didn't you, love? She broke off in order to stop a young kid moving round the room with his tray of canapes. My grandson, Beau, she said proudly, giving his arm a squeeze before helping herself to the feta with balsamic onion jam and a beetroot relish with blue cheese and pear. I saw you on Focus North. Brilliant it was. No wonder our Cameron wants you helping with this new project of his. She broke off once again as Cameron started speaking, lifting a hand in the guest's direction.
We're ready to eat, everyone, he called. Do come across to the dining room.
Chapter 4. There were 13 of us to be seated around the huge oval table in the beautifully decorated dining room just off the kitchen. Itching to see this fabulous kitchen, fitted out apparently with top-of-the-range equipment over which Mum had enthused almost as much as Cameron's wildflower garden. I managed only a glimpse into its shiny white and metallic interior before being herded into the dining room along with the others. Although the table had been set with polished cut glass and starched navy linen napkins, the low-ceilinged room I walked into was warm and welcoming, relaxed, comfortable and homely, with any sense of conventional formality broken by the masses of spring flowers and herbs, Mum's handiwork, presumably, arranged down the centre of the table itself. There was no seating arrangement, but instead, a young boy round about Sorrel's age was laughingly but bossily splitting up the satyr daughters-in-law, who appeared somewhat unhinged once they were separated, directing them towards the places he firmly indicated. Hoping to be seated near Robin, Mum, Fabian or Shirl, or even Dean, I found myself instead ushered up towards the head of the table and into the chair on Cameron's right. Well, that was okay then, better than next to the scary thin women whose main concern appeared to be the superiority of the 8-kilogram rubber-coated chrome-handled kettlebell over its 6-kilogram vinyl opponent at the gym, or some such thing. I did begin to relax, knowing at least Cameron and I would be able to talk food, but then that would obviously morph into the current progress of the White House restaurant, and I knew I couldn't be a part of it. I just couldn't don chef whites and be at the helm alongside Cameron and Fabian once the new restaurant opened in a few months' time. Couldn't have sous chefs, they'd be poaching from top restaurants shouting, "Yes, chef," in my direction, when I wasn't actually a chef with any real formal training. The very idea was utterly ludicrous. I sipped at my glass of water, searching out Robin down the table, who was chatting to Harif, the satyr brother second in age after Cameron. Obviously knowing herself under scrutiny, Robin turned from Harif towards me, mouthing, "You okay?" I was just about to mouth back, "No, can I come and sit with you?" when my view of Robin was blocked and the much younger, obnoxious brother, who'd cut me free from the restraints of the Sainsbury's bag, sat down beside me on my left. "So what do you do?" Nerves and the one glass of champagne had obviously given an over-loud voice to my realisation that, as a guest here, I needed to converse if I was ever to be invited back as a dinner guest in polite society. Did I really want to be invited back again? The desire to be back in my own tiny kitchen, cooking up new recipes while listening to Radio 4 was becoming almost overwhelming. George jumped theatrically as he turned in my direction.
"Goodness, sorry, mein Commandant, you spoke."
He continued to give the appearance of being terrified of me before relenting.
"What do I do? When, exactly?"
I sighed. This was going to be bloody hard work, I could tell.
So, are you part of the great satire fish finger empire, or do your interests lie with this new restaurant Cameron is about to open?
I try and get away with doing as little as possible, George said, while reaping the rewards that come with being the youngest son of a driven family.
So? I sighed inwardly once more. I mean, what was it all about that some people seemed unable to converse normally and instead insisted on trying to play some sort of game that led you round the houses but told you nothing?
So, what else do you want to know?
George picked up his glass, drained its contents, and glanced idly across the table to where the tall, sultry blonde, his wife, was deep in conversation with Dean. How long have you been married? Any children? Weren't these the questions one was supposed to ask?
I've never been married and, as far as I know, have no children.
He reached for the bottle of champagne he'd brought into the dining room with him and refilled his glass, only turning to attend to my own when I raised an eye in his direction.
But I guess a man can never be totally sure on that score.
He paused, obviously mulling the conundrum.
Whereas you women are able to keep an exact tally.
I beg your pardon? I shook my head slightly, realising the man was very drunk.
I mean, you're lucky, aren't you? Women's bodies and how they work are very much controlled by yourselves. You're in charge of it all. Whereas we men, well, we do the deed, as it were, in all good faith, you know? And after that...